Lesson 27, Brain Organization and Function. In this lesson, we'll be covering major parts of the brain, meninges, CSF, gray and white matter, lobes, fissures, sulci, gyri, hemispheres, and some important functions. Brain is located within cranial cavity and it controls most of body's function. It is composed of nervous system. There are actually billions of them there to make our brain, which weighs only around 1250 gram to 1450 gram, close to 3 pounds. But it plays a major role in our survival, perception, memory, and so many other stuff. We are different from other animals because of this brain. 20% of our blood flow is going to brain because it needs a lot of those energy, oxygen and glucose, sugar to survive. 4 main parts of the brain: cerebrum, that's the big brain; cerebellum, the small one; diencephalon, and brainstem. Cerebrum has 2 hemispheres, right and left. You see on the one side, this is the left hemisphere, cerebrum, which performs higher mental functions, interprets sensory stimuli, plans and initiates movement. Okay, and you see those elevations there. Those are the gyrus. Gyrus is singular, gyri plural, and the indentation, the grooves, those are sulci and sulcus. Sulci is plural, sulcus singular. In the cerebrum, the big brain, it is mostly responsible for our learning, memory, personality, cognition, language, and conscience, and major roles in sensation movement. Diencephalon, the central core beneath the cerebral hemisphere, which cannot be seen from outside. You see the bluish shade, that is the diencephalon, which processes, integrates, and relays the information. Most importantly, it maintains homeostasis. Okay, we'll talk about that. Let's find out those homeostatic functions. Biological rhythms, regulation of movement, like diurnal rhythm. We wake up in the morning, go to sleep at night. These rhythms are maintained by this diencephalon, as well as maintenance of temperature and other homeostasis. Cerebellum separated into right and left hemisphere. Cerebellum, think about double L, that's like the small brain. Where is that? That orange color on the back of this big brain, you see cerebellum, which monitors and coordinates movement. That's the point to note. Cerebellum coordinates our movement. Fourth one is the brainstem, the oldest part of our brain that connects brain and spinal cord. You see this brainstem here in lavender color. On top, the upper part, it is connected to diencephalon. In the lower part, it is connected to spinal cord. Brainstem's basic function is to homeostatic mechanism, control certain reflexes, monitor movement, integrating and relaying information. Now, the gray matter and white matter. In the spinal cord, we know that gray matter is inside, white matter outside, but here is the opposite thing. If I take a cross section, I see that the white matter in, and it is surrounded by those gray matters. And we know that gray matters are the unmyelinated nerve, cell body, and dendrites. whereas white matter is the myelinated nerves. Cerebrum contains bundle of white matter called tracts. In peripheral nervous system, we call it nerve. And the nuclei, tracts receive and sends information to the nuclei of the gray matter. This is another part. Now let's go to main regions, primary brain regions, forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. Forebrain, the frontal side, right, becomes cerebrum and diencephalon, the front part. Midbrain is the brain stem, and hind means behind, back side. That is the cerebellum, pons, and medulla. So three main regions: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. And this is how it was developed. We don't have to need this in detail. Just have a look that from the embryo stage, early stage, this is the brain was looked like, and then it developed into a full mature brain before the baby is born. Meninges. In previous lectures, you know about meninges, that is covering spinal cord. Same thing here. Meninges covers the the brain, which has three layers: DAP, dura mater, arachnoid matter, and pia mater. Dura mater is the outermost and thickest layer. Blood vessels are in this epidural space, just above the dura mater. Subdural space, that is the below this level, it contains serous fluid and veins. You see some dural sinuses here that contains the blood vessels formed from dura, drains CSF, deoxygenated blood. Arachnoid matter is important for us to know because this is the arachnoid matter contains CSF in the subarachnoid space, cerebrospinal fluid. Granulations return CSF to bloodstream, and this is the part where the point to note where the CSF ends its journey. Later on, I'll tell you its beginning and end. This is the last part, the granulations, where it will be taken back into blood flow. Pia matter, the innermost one, covers surface of the brain, permeable to substances in extracellular fluid and CSF. And you see here on the right side, that's the pia mater closest or innermost layer. So DAP, dura, arachnoid, and pia mater. Ventricles. In your lab, you have seen those ventricles, 4 ventricles, the cavities in brain containing CSF. First 2 ventricles are called lateral ventricles, right lateral, left lateral. And then this is the right and left lateral you see here. At the middle, we have 3rd ventricle. And then at the lower part, 4th ventricle. The ventricle is the cavity within the brain, and that contains cerebrospinal fluid. Between the lateral ventricles, there is a foramen. Foramen means a space, a gap. It's called interventricular foramens. That connects this 3rd and lateral ventricle. Cerebral aqueduct is the next one that connects 3rd ventricle and 4th ventricle. Think about the word aqueduct. Probably have heard it, the water channel. So this is the duct taking water and connecting the 3rd and 4th ventricle. And then the 4th ventricle becomes continuous with the central canal of spinal cord. Let's talk about CSF. Clear, colorless liquid similar to plasma. And plasma is the liquid part of blood. What does it do? The CSF. It protects our brain by cushioning effect. Like you think about it, the 3-pound brain is floating in that CSF. You don't feel it because it's protected by CSF, cushion. It maintains the constant temperature, removes waste, and increases buoyancy, the floating tendency. So why is it formed? It is formed by choroid plexus within each ventricle. Please take a note. Where is it coming from? The CSF is formed by choroid plexus inside the ventricle. Now, this is where you can see in the middle of this picture, the choroid plexus, the lateral and third ventricle, kind of reddish in color. And there are ependymal cells, which is one of the neuroglial cells we know that makes this cerebrospinal fluid, CSF. So, point to note about the ependymal cells, secretes the CSF. CSF will circulate and through and around the brain, spinal cord, into the subarachnoid space. And at the end, CSF is reabsorbed into blood in the dural sinuses via arachnoid granulations. So once again, it is formed in the choroid plexus of the ventricle, then moving around the brain and spinal cord, and then it is absorbed by the arachnoid granulations in the sinuses. 150 milliliter of CSF that we have so far. And every day, our body can make 750 to 800 milliliters. It's like half of the production is replaced every day, and the half will be taken away. One medical condition you can take a note is the hydrocephalus. Look at that word. Hydro. Hydro means water. Cephal. Cephal means brain. So when there is too much blood, too much fluid in our brain and the brain, around the brain, this condition is called hydrocephalus because the CSF is having some problem to drain out. If it cannot be drained and continuously produced, that will make a big pad. It's called hydrocephalus. Blood-brain barrier, BBB, triple B. Cerebrospinal fluid and brain, the cellular fluid separated from blood. Think about it. Blood is going through the capillaries, blood vessels, veins, and arteries, but they should not have direct access to brain, right? It should be protected. And that protection is given by capillaries, the wall of the capillaries, basal lamina, and astrocyte. If you recall the things, this picture you have seen before, you see here, this is the blood cell erythrocyte moving through the capillaries. And around the capillary wall, there is a side junction, there's astrocyte and basement membrane. These three things are going to make this blood-brain barrier. So once again, BBB is made up of capillary endothelium, basal lamina, which is the basement, and astrocyte, which is one of the most important neuroglial cells. The big brain, cerebrum, composed of cerebral hemisphere and lateral ventricles. Here we have longitudinal fissure at the middle, then right frontal lobe, left frontal lobe, parietal lobes, occipital lobes, insula, and the temporal lobe. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lobes. Sulci are the shallow grooves on the surface. In singular, we say sulcus. Gyri are elevated ridges. In singular, it is gyrus. You see those sulcus here? I need your attention to look at that word central sulcus. Central sulcus. Because before that central sulcus, this gyrus is called precentral gyrus. Why is that important? I'll come into that point. But precentral and post-central gyrus, please take a note on these two things, before and after central sulcus. There is a fissure, lateral fissure as well. Fissure is much more deeper. Okay. Now, after this part, let's talk about those 5 lobes. Front part of the brain is the frontal brain, and we know the bone is also called frontal bone. Planning, executing movement, complex mental function such as behavior, conscience, personality, all these functions are related to cerebrum, the frontal part. What about parietal? On the top of your head. It processes, integrates sensory information and attention. Hearing, language, memory, emotions, these are in the temporal part. Occipital part will be the back of the head, which will cover the vision. And interior side, the insula, is for taste and visceral. Frontal lobe is in front of the central front of the part of the brain. Its posterior boundary is the central sulcus. And as you see here, in front of the central sulcus, this is the area called frontal lobe. On back of that, this will be parietal lobe. Lateral fissure. The temporal lobes are on the lateral surface, separated from frontal and parietal by lateral fissure. So look at this temporal lobe. In front, there's a lateral fissure you see, and above the front and top, and that is the area just behind the temporal bone. We call it temporal lobe. Occipital lobe, the posterior one, separated from parietal lobe by parietal occipital sulcus. Where is that? Parietal occipital sulcus, that will be right on this area. You see the dotted line, that is the parietal occipital sulcus. Now, let's go interior of the brain. If we take one hemisphere, so far we learned from outside. In the inside part, we have this C-shaped area, that's the corpus callosum. Underneath that, we have fornix, lateral ventricle. The thalamus will get your attention. It looks like a potato. Thalamus, just underneath hypothalamus. In the back of the thalamus, we have pineal gland. Small gland you see over there. Then we have pons, midbrain, pons, medulla. Cerebellum looks like tree, and those white areas, the arbor vitae. We have third ventricle, fourth ventricle, and in between the cerebral aqueduct. Insula is very deep to frontal, parietal, and temporal area. So if we remove that part, like you see here, you will find insula. Cerebral gray matter is the cortex. Majority is neocortex. Neo means new. Because in primitive brain, even in some animals, like right now, they don't have the most developed part, but we do have. It is involved in the conscious processes such as planning. We human, we do these things that most of the animals cannot do. Planning, movement, interpreting sensory information, and complex higher functions like mathematics, calculus, physics, chemistry, biology. The things we are learning, we human can do that because of this neocortex, the cerebral cortex. It has a motor part which can do the job. We can move our body. There's a sensory area, and then in between, association area. Motor cortex is located in the precentral gyrus. Please take a note, the location of primary motor cortex that will be involved in guidance, coordination, and execution of movement. Where is that? That red long area you see here, red area. This will be primary motor cortex. The blue area is the sensory area. Somatosensory, that means we can feel temperature, touch, vibration, pressure, stretch, joint positions. These are somatosensory. And which area is that? It's located in the post-central gyrus. I told you earlier, think about the central sulcus. Behind that, this blue area is the post-central gyrus. It's the primary somatosensory area cortex, CS1. There is another one associated, will be S2. The visual cortex is important because everything that we see, it has to make a meaning. And that meaningful thing is done by this right corner. You see the primary blue visual cortex in blue. This is the area, the occipital area. Auditory cortex is responsible for hearing. And there you go. In this temporal area, small bluish part, this is primary auditory cortex. For speech sound to produce language, we use Broca's area. And to understand the language, we use Wernicke's area. The two things, on your left side, you see that Broca's area. Right now I'm using to talk to you. On your right side, you see the Wernicke's area. That is the area you are using to understand what I am talking about. The prefrontal cortex, right? You see on the left side, okay? That is important for modulating behavior, personality, learning, memory, and psychological state. Parietal, temporal, they have their own function for language, maintaining attention, recognition, and spatial awareness. Spatial, S-P-A-T-I-A-L, that is about space. We know about the space, two three-dimensional things that is done by part of the brain. So in this table, you will find the location, type of cortex, function of those different areas. While you study, try to focus on those special things that we have learned so far. In the last part of the lecture, we are coming to a few more things to add here, starting with the limbic system. Memory, learning, emotion, behavior. And it is inside the brain. You see those things, the limbic system? It has different parts, like hippocampus. Hippocampus is connected to the fornix, and the nucleus has role in memory and learning. Point to note, part of the limbic system, hippocampus, is for learning and memory. Another part is amygdala. Nucleus functions in emotion, especially fear. So that is the amygdala part. So I thought there would be something else. Anyway, this lecture on this chapter is going to be ending with the amygdala, right? Because I'm afraid of timing. So that is the amygdala right now. being activated. Just a moment.